Hi, this is Steve Kodad. This is a CE class that I do for real estate agents in Florida called Real Estate Success Using Feng Shui with your local clients and international investors. I appreciate you joining me. A little bit about myself is I was a realtor of over 20 years in 3 different states. I was a broker owner of a 30-plus agent real estate company in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm a national real estate trainer. I have 3 designations in Feng Shui. I currently operate a home evaluation company in Southwest Florida, and I've written 3 books on this particular topic. Now, there are 4 major topics that we're going to cover. This is part 1 of the CE class. Part 2 will follow, of course, but these are the major topics. I want to make sure that I enhance the knowledge of Feng Shui for real estate agents. More and more you are running into something like this where somebody brings up the topic, whether it's in your car, when you're looking to find a home for somebody, or possibly helping them to sell. You're going to be running into more and more international home buyers that also have a fairly strong level of interest in Feng Shui. So we're going to talk about where that interest comes from. I want to go over some houses that have some very severe Feng Shui problems, some potential solutions, and in some cases where they cannot be cured at all, and you might want to be able to talk to your client about moving on to another home. And then finally, how to use Feng Shui in a very practical, common sense way to sell a home quickly, inexpensively, and to reduce the amount of stress that your client is under. Now, how I got started with Feng Shui was simply this. Again, I was a real estate agent in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I had some materials sent to me about Feng Shui. And I really didn't know an awful lot about it, but it was intriguing because they talked about how it could help me to sell my homes. I considered myself a listing agent. I did a lot of business in that area, and anything that could get me to a closing a little faster and making my client feel less stressed definitely was of interest to me. So I sent away for the materials, again, not even knowing how to pronounce the word probably properly at that point. And I got a house given to me in my neighborhood that was vacant. People had just moved out. I was about to be their 3rd real estate agent. They had been on the market for over 6 months. And so I decided to try to Feng Shui the house. Even though it was vacant, I followed the criteria that was given to me on the set of tapes. And I brought some material from my house, set it up. 3 days later, I did an open house and I got an offer. So I started to become very intrigued with Feng Shui and started using it with my other clients. They turned out to love following the techniques. I had more and more success with it. Certainly not as pronounced as possibly the first one, but certainly very successful. So I got more and more into it, fell in love with the whole concept, decided to get certified with a couple from California, and then one thing led to another that I ended up selling my part of the company to my partner to pursue Feng Shui solely over a decade ago. Now, here is a before of a house that I was called in to stage using Feng Shui. I'm going to show you the after, and then when we finally get to the end of part 2, I'll show it to you again. And hopefully at that point, you'll understand what I'm trying to do. But again, this is the before. This is what I saw to start with. And here's the after, what I did with it. Okay, so again, you'll see this again. And I think you'll be much more understanding of what I try to accomplish in a very inexpensive way. Now, what's Feng Shui? Well, it is considered an art and a science. I like to think of it as a very old environmental science that is thousands of years old. And anything that stands around for thousands of years has to have something to it. And it does. There's a lot of common sense to it. But when I talk to clients, I talk to them about it being an environmental science. It considers things like order, beauty, harmony, balance, attraction, safety, comfort, and bringing in nature. And all of those are very positive attributes. It affects a person subconsciously. And I've had to do an awful lot of studying about this, probably because of my college background, but I wanted to understand what this meant. Well, I found out that actually 5% of what goes on around us at a particular time is what we put all of our attention on. And the other 95% is coming from our subconscious. These are templates that have built up since we were young and graduated from high school and got into the workforce and so forth and so forth. These templates have built up our habits and how we react to things. But 5% of what goes on is really what's in front of us. We were wired to handle that 5%. But when you're trying to sell something, if the 95% is not affected properly or positively, you're really going to have a problem on your hand. It's often referred to as simply the art of placement, a very simplistic definition that I suppose you can mention to your significant other what this is about. But there's a lot of different definitions of it, and this is one of my favorites. It's living in harmony with the natural world. And you'll find out through these several hours of CE that the idea of bringing the natural world inside is a very big part of things. We want things to come off as natural. Feng Shui, again, is an art or science created primarily in South China. Again, thousands of years ago, depending on what book you pick up. It could be anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 years old. And why in South China? Well, because of the topology. It had a lot of mountains, a lot of water. And that's how the philosophy started. The words stand for wind and water. Feng is wind, Shui is water. And what's important about that is that those are the two most prevalent ways of moving energy around our planet. It is found around the world under different names, and I think this is an important thing for real estate agents to understand and acknowledge. For example, Feng Shui in other parts of the world, in India, it's called Washnu. And all of these that I put up here are very, very similar ideas to Feng Shui that developed around the world at different times. So if you type in Washnu, you'll find out that it's extremely similar to what you're going to hear here. Vietnam is called Feng Tui. In Thailand, it's called Shui. Korea, it's called Punsgu. In Japan, it's called Wusu. And in the rest of the world, it's known as Feng Shui. Now, this really came to home with me when, again, I was an owner of a company, and we had a lot of different folks in there that spoke different languages, including a person from Korea. And Chong Choi was a very, very nice guy and a very productive agent. And I remember going to him one day and asking him if he knew what Feng Shui was, and he had no idea what I was talking about. But then when I used the proper word for him, he didn't know what I was talking about at that time. So you might have somebody in your back seat from a different part of the world. They just understand this idea, this science, under a different name. But again, most of the planet knows of it as Feng Shui. Now, to make things, I guess, a little more complex for you, there are different schools of Feng Shui. So you might have somebody in your car, or you might be at their home, and they're talking about Feng Shui a little differently because there are different schools. The first school, forming thousands of years ago, is referred to as land form or form school. This is the first school of Feng Shui. And this school takes precedence over any of the other Feng Shui schools that I put up here. And sometimes there is a disagreement, for example, on the location of a bed. Some schools are going to follow form school. That's what I do. It's very simple and easy to do and follow when you're working with an existing home, especially. But some people think of Feng Shui as always working with compasses. But there are a lot of different Feng Shui schools that are compass schools that follow different ideas. So you're going to find out, again, I use landform, and I also use the Western school called Tibetan Black Hat, which is extremely popular in the United States. Those two schools work really, really well with existing homes. And again, since I was listing homes, not so much building, helping with the building process, this is the direction that I took. Now, there are three important concepts that any real estate agent or anybody should really become very familiar with if they're going to work with Feng Shui. So let me get those three concepts out of the way before we go into anything else. The first concept you need to understand is something called Qi, or what it is and what it will do for you. It's spelled differently in books at times. I always spell it C-H-I, but Qi is our life spirit. It's what you and I tap into every morning to get moving. It's what keeps us going. It's our life spirit. And often I'll replace the word Qi with the word energy, depending on who I'm talking to. Some clients are more comfortable with the word energy and not so much with the word Qi. Qi is everywhere, everywhere. It's in the ceiling above you. It's in the floor below you. It's in the chair that you might be sitting in right now. Everything in this world of ours is nothing but energy just vibrating at a different pace, including you. We're all energy. Now, the number one goal of Feng Shui, and I don't care what school we're talking about, is to make sure that the Qi is abundant coming into our environment, but that it's under control. Under control.